Championship baseball is being played once again in Wareham from Spillane Field. Game 1 of the championship series against the East Division winning Chatham Anglers. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Gatemen Pregame Show. My name's Henrique DaMour. On my right, JD Raucci, and on my left, Cam Stuart. It's been an interesting road to the playoffs. It's been bumpier than a 4-game sweep might indicate. But Cam, let's talk about this Falmouth series because it was incredibly entertaining. Big bullpen performances from the Gatemen.
Yeah, after some smooth sailing relatively in Game 2 against Cotuit, they obviously benefit from the 10-run ninth. That makes it a 9-run win for the Gatemen. Very tough series against Falmouth, which is what we expected coming in. Two of the best team ERAs in the league, especially Falmouth, and the way these teams have played against each other this year. They were always kind of roughneck games, low scoring, great pitching as we expected, and we got more of that here in the postseason. And you mentioned it was really the bullpen that came through for me. Joey Barron for the Gatemen in Game 1 gets the win and goes the last 3 innings of the ball game, and then can't say enough about Alex Stiegler in Game 2. 4 really gutsy innings when the game was starting to not get out of hand, but get a lot closer. You know, the Gatemen pull up with a huge lead, 6-0. Stiegler ends up giving up 2 unearned runs, and it gets to 7-4. And we said it on the broadcast a few times. It looked like he was running out of gas, and you just didn't know what else he was going to have left in him. But he just kept coming through, located his pitches. As I mentioned in the postgame in that game, not the hardest fastball, not the greatest stuff. A kid who's still an infielder part-time at Yale and still becoming a pitcher, has had a great summer in the 2 leagues now, and was just outstanding. I think one of the best pitching performances we have seen from any Gateman this season. Definitely the most gutsy, and held off a team that, as I mentioned again, not a great offense, but a good offense, and a team with their backs up against the wall at home, really playing for their lives, and he just kept shutting them down.
Yeah, he pitched really well against the Falmouth team. Like you said, Cam, not only are they, they were playing with their backs against the wall, but they've played the Gatemen tough. A lot of low-scoring, tight games against Wareham this year, all year. And a team that the season series has not quite gone the other team's way, but a team that I know you especially believe is way better than their 3 games over 500 record is the Chatham Anglers.
Yeah, I mean, 4-0 for the Gatemen against the Anglers this season. You start on opening day, a big 12-5 win over the Anglers, a 7-run 9th inning. So kind of very similar to that Cotuit game in Game 2. I mentioned that a couple of times on that broadcast. And really, it was a dominant effort throughout the season against the Anglers for the Gatemen. Plus 22 run differential, 34 runs for, 12 runs against. And really, everything has worked against the Anglers thus far this season. Everything has really been clicking. But as you mentioned, I think this Anglers team is really something dangerous. The Gatemen have yet to see them with their full offense of 1 through 4. Blake Sable's going to lead it off. He had 7 home runs this season. Then you got Spencer Torkelson in the 2-hole. You can say enough about him just by saying his name. Then you got the likes of Colin Simpson, John Rave, Michael Bush from North Carolina. We have yet to see this Chatham Anglers lineup fully stocked and fully loaded. It is going to be it's going to be interesting to see because the Gatemen are going to throw their best pitchers today. They are going to go out and try to win game number 1. As we've talked about so many times, this game number 1 in a 3-game series is just so crucial because we've seen only sweeps thus far. We've only seen 2-game sweeps in every playoff series thus far. So winning game number 1 is going to be crucial. And it's going to be interesting to see how the Gatemen react to seeing this Chatham lineup fully locked and loaded for the first time. We're also going to see their ace for the first time this season. We've seen Alec Manoa once. He will be the Game 2 starter. But the Game 1 starter, Austin Bergner out of North Carolina, he is very, very good. Gatemen have yet to see him as well. So really, the Gatemen played a lot of games against the Anglers in the early part of the season. 2 in the first week and a half or so. One at Veterans Field and one here at Spillane. But again, the Gatemen haven't seen them fully loaded. But then again, Chatham hasn't seen the Gatemen fully loaded, as in, yeah, they saw them with Andrew Vaughn, and they saw them with Bryson Stott and Mason Fury and guys of that sort, but they haven't seen this newest part of the Gatemen offense with a newly rejuvenated Isaac Collins or Austin Shenton, who's now hitting for power as well. They saw Shenton when he was leading the league in average, but they haven't seen the power stroke that he's been putting on over the last couple of days. So really, I'm not sure how much of an indicator that 4-0 series sweep or regular season sweep of the Anglers is going to be for the Gatemen, and how much that's going to tell us about how this series is going to go, because the 2 rosters are so different. One thing I will say, though, I've talked to a couple of people. One thing they've mentioned, sure, the Gatemen went 4-0 in the regular season, but it is tough. It is very tough to beat this team 6 times in one season, in a season as short as the Cape League.
There's going to be a heck of a matchup in these 2 games. They'll start it off here at Spillane Field. First pitch at 6:30, barring any weather shenanigans. The rain has held off so far. We're hoping that it does for the rest of the series. But on to more pressing matters, like you said, JD, a tough Chatham Anglers team coming to town. They're locked and loaded. The Gatemen are throwing their best man, Ryan Garcia, and our head coach, Don Sneddon, got to sit down with Mary Orders before the game to see just how the heck they're going to tackle Chatham.
Thanks, guys. So, Coach, your first Cape League Championship appearance as a manager, how are you feeling about it?
Well, for us, it was a goal from day one as we just progress and progress and progress. So we're happy to be here, and it's fun. It really helps, and the players have basically played 44 games plus the 4 extra just to get here. So it's a great way for them to finish the summer.
How does it compare to some other big coaching moments of your career?
It's a whole different game. For me, I have a lot invested in this, but it is still summer baseball, and our major goal here is to really develop players and get them better to play. And as a result of that, you teach them how to win, and this could help them with that process through that. You're in college, you have more invested. You recruit all the players, you raise the money, you do everything else. So there's a little bit more, quote, not pressure, but a little bit more into it type of thing. But they're all special, and I like to win. So obviously we're going to come out here and try to win this thing.
You guys talk about winning. You've won 4 in a row now, swept 2 really tough teams. How does that show the effectiveness of this team?
Well, I'm really proud of them. I mean, to end both going over in Falmouth ending their career or ending their season on their field, and Cotuit ending their season on their field. I mean, that's not... it's not that you're trying to do that, but to be able to do that on their home field advantage is very special. These guys have done some things that they can't take away from them, and I told them a little bit earlier, very proud of what they've accomplished. Now it's up to them if they want to make history or not.
Stiegler stepped up big on Thursday, relatively new guy to the team. How important was that?
That was huge. We're going to have to... Again, every day's a different hero. We don't have one person that can carry us. So all season long, we've had other people step up, and that was a huge one for him right there. We've had some other pitchers do that too, but for guys come all the way from Alaska to getting off a plane to being here just 3 or 4 days and coming out there in that type of environment to pitch as well as he did, it speaks highly of him. He's got a great future in front of him.
Chatham has a great offense. How important is pitching tonight?
Well, we got great pitching, so we'll see if great pitching stops great hitting. Yeah.
What's the plan for Garcia and the bullpen?
Well, it's the same as we always do. We have Garcia, and then we have Lucas. So then after that, we'll see what we have and try to do some matchups and everything else. I mean, they're playing well, too, and I think the 2 best teams right now are playing each other the way it should be.
Lastly, overall keys to tonight's game?
Well, you want to get ahead, and have them play catch-up with that a little bit. It keeps them on edge with that, but we're going to play 9 innings just as we've done all year long, and even if we get behind, this team here, it doesn't affect them. They can come back.
Coach, thanks so much for your time. After the break, we'll have more from the Gatemen Baseball Network.
The Cape Cod Baseball League is sponsored by Dietz & Watson Premium Meats and Cheeses. They've got everything you need for summer grilling, like 100% beef franks. These franks are made of hand-trimmed beef with that old-fashioned snap when you bite into them. Dietz & Watson, it's a family thing. Welcome back to the Gatemen Pregame Show on the Gatemen Baseball Network. Big thank you to our sideline reporter, Mary Orders, and head coach Don Sneddon for that. Going against the Wareham Gatemen today, like you said, JD, it's going to be ace versus ace. Let's start with you. Austin Bergner out of UNC, someone that the Gatemen haven't seen so far, but has ace-caliber stuff, starting with that fastball.
Ace-caliber stuff might not even be the best way to put it. He is absolutely filthy. One of the top prospects probably in the league and probably in the country. We've been told that the fastball could get up to 97 miles an hour. That will be by far the fastest pitch the Gatemen have seen this season. Plus, he's got a good curveball, good changeup. He's still a 3-pitch guy. There's still a lot of room for him to improve, but he's got a pro-ready body. 6'5", a little bit small, could put on a little bit of extra weight, but when you think of a big right-handed flamethrower, you think big, tall. I know Andrew Miller, former Chatham Angler, is a lefty, but that's another guy. Big, tall guy coming out of UNC, kind of in the same mold of Bergner, was a starter at UNC, but you could easily see Bergner moving into more of a closing role as his career progresses. Anyhow, he is absolutely fantastic. Sub-3 ERA this season in 5 starts with the Chatham Anglers this year. The Gatemen haven't seen him because he was playing in the College World Series with the North Carolina Tar Heels this year. He is really, really good. It is going to be interesting to see how the Gatemen kind of adjust to that fastball in the early part of the lineup and in the first time through the order, because that fastball is going to be something to adjust to. You're going to see a lot of guys choking up. We know we see Ryan Kreidler often choke up with 2 strikes. We are going to see guys choking up throughout the game today. He throws hard, probably the fastest fastball or the hardest fastball you'll see all season long if you're the Gatemen, so you got to be ready for Austin Bergner. Should be a good pitching matchup today with Ryan Garcia on the mound as well for the Gatemen.
And Ryan Garcia going to be on the hill, like we said. Cam, we've talked about him ad nauseum. He's been the Gatemen's best pitcher. He's let up 1 earned run or fewer in all of his starts, and he gets the call today for Game 1 of the championship series.
Yeah, talent-wise, these guys are just as good, but as JD said, 2 different molds. You said he's like Andrew Miller. I'll raise you another Carolina Tar Heel. I think he's a lot like Andrew Bard, the right-hander who's going to move to the bullpen with that hard stuff. But Garcia, on the other end, it's not as hard, but it's pretty much just as effective. He locates so well. That fastball's got a little bit of bite that we've seen the last few weeks. And in those last few weeks, he hasn't allowed an earned run, hasn't allowed one of those since July 12th. So, I mean, he's really on a roll right now. This is the guy you want out there for the Gatemen. He kind of labored his last time out which is weird to say because he went 5 no-hit shutout innings, but we saw him, we walked a couple of guys. It seemed like some of his pitches weren't there, but he worked around it. And in a playoff game against a good team in Cotuit, a team who had more points than the Chatham team that we're facing today. So, I mean, that's pretty good for Garcia to have. That's a pretty good problem to have, I should say. So if he is at the end of the road here, it's obviously going to be his last start here in the Cape. It's still looking pretty good for a guy who's at the end of the road. So he has been terrific for them all year, real ace stuff. And what I'm looking forward to is after him, it's almost always Easton Lucas. That's the word we've gotten today. It's going to be Easton Lucas again, the other West All-Star pitcher for the Gatemen. And he is a guy who has just been spectacular all year, a guy who I thought was going to end up being a starter and definitely has the starter stuff. But I think Jim Lawler and Don Sneddon see a guy who they say, you know what? We've got guys who can start and give us 3 or 4 good innings. We can really use Easton Lucas in a long relief situation like they do after Ryan Garcia and, put our 2 best pitchers in and win a big game. And so I think that's what they're going for today. Lucas has been great as well this postseason. So that 1-2 punch, even against a great offense like Chatham, is going to be pretty tough for them to handle.
So the Anglers going with Bergner, the Gatemen going with their traditional 1-2 punch from what we've seen when we talked to the right-handed hook above that 1-2 punch. Earlier today, our sideline reporter Mary Orders got to catch up with today's starter, Ryan Garcia, before the game.
Thanks, guys. Ryan, Game 1 starter for the championship series. How are you feeling about it?
Feeling good. I'm excited. Excited to give this my last start of the Cape a final go. Yeah.
Chatham is arguably going to be the best offense you faced all year. How are you going to try to keep them off the board?
Not trying to change too much. Obviously, just go after them like I usually do with other teams. Just stick with my approach and just be me.
The second and third time through the order, do you try to mix things up? What's your strategy with that?
Yeah, I mean, you don't really want to pitch the same sequence over, like you said, throughout 2 or 3 times in a lineup. But, yeah, so I'll obviously try to mix things up if I get there.
You play in the Pac-12 with some of the guys from Chatham, including Sable and Torkelson, who are arguably 2 of their best hitters. Does that familiarity help you, or do you try to mix it up against them?
Familiarity definitely helps. Like you said, we faced them during season, so I kind of know what to expect from them. But yeah, I think it'll be good to mix things up when I face them.
Have you personally pitched against them during the college season?
Yeah, I pitched against Blake. I don't think I pitched against Torkelson. But yes, I've known Blake for a while, and he's definitely a good hitter.
We touched on this a little bit before your last start, but this is probably one of the biggest moments in your pitching career. How does it stack up to some of the other moments in your career?
This definitely is at the top. The championship series in the Cape Cod League, and I'm just kind of excited. I get the start, and it's definitely an honor. It's been a fun summer, and I'm just looking forward to it.
How many innings are you planning on going?
Hopefully 5 or 6. Yeah.
And lastly, what's the plan for the bullpen after you?
Bullpen will probably go Easton Lucas, like usual, like our little combo that we have going. And then after that, I think we have Ryan Stedemeyer hot in the pen.
Ryan, thanks so much and good luck tonight. After the break, we'll have more from the Gatemen Baseball Network.
The Cape Cod Baseball League is sponsored by Dietz & Watson Premium Meats and Cheeses. Their all-beef Franks are their ultimate summer hot dog. They're smoked the old-fashioned way with just a touch of garlic and paprika. Pick up a pack at your local deli today. Dietz & Watson. It's a family thing.
And welcome to today's edition of Get on the Beat. I'm Ian Vescera, the Wareham beat writer, and I'm joined today by Colin Hosshill, Cape Cod Times, covering the Cape League this summer. Colin, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. And Colin, we're here for one reason, the championship game. 2 great teams out here, Chatham, Wareham. You've been covering the league, not just one specific team all summer, but out of these 2 teams, what have you seen from them so far?
I mean, looking back on the entire year, these are 2 teams that have been at the top of their respective divisions the entire time, and it sort of made sense. Now, Chatham their lineup has been strong the entire year. Their pitching has been strong, and I imagine that they might even be better in the regular season. They were behind YD for much of the year, and it turns out they came out of their division. But Wareham, they've obviously had a lot of turnover, especially in the last month. Yet here we are, and they've swept through the playoffs. Chatham swept through the playoffs. They both haven't really had that much of a challenge, it feels like, and it sort of makes sense now looking back on it that they're here. I mean, both of them have really strong lineups and good starting pitching, and that's sort of all you need to get here. And now that's why I'm really excited for this one. It's 2 even teams in my mind.
That's for sure, Colin. And so one thing you mentioned was good starting pitching, good hitting for both teams. But if you had to pick specific strengths for each team, what would you say they would be?
I mean, if you look at Chatham, it's power. I mean, you can't think about them without the power. At any time, 1 through 9 in their lineup, they have guys that can hit it out of the park. I mean, Michael Bush, Torkelson, Blake Sable, those are just like 3 guys that come to mind. And 1 through 9, that's what they have. And that's what Wareham's going to have to watch out for. Now, Wareham on the other side, I mean, the amazing thing about them, the one thing that comes to mind is they've lost the guys. They've lost a lot of hitters, and yet I come to their games, and Falmouth is a team that had the fewest runs allowed the entire year, and yet they put up runs on Falmouth. That obviously they didn't put up a ton of them in the first one, but it didn't seem like that much of a problem. I mean, Austin Shenton, how do I talk about them without talking about Austin Shenton? They've had guys like him come through and be so consistent the entire year, and that's what stands out to me about them.
Yeah, for sure. Austin Shenton's been one of the best Gatemen bats all season long.
Best player potentially the best player in the league, most consistent. Every single time he comes up to bat, I think something's going to happen in Wareham's favor.
Yeah, at this point in the summer, I mentioned something that manager Don Sneddon has mentioned to me a lot is he thinks that Austin Shenton is the best hitter left in the Cape League, and it's easy to see why. Now, as for keys to this series, what do you think is going to be the deciding factor? Because again, 2 even teams, but what's going to put one team over the edge? What are the factors in this one?
I mean, I think getting ahead early is really important. I've said that. I remember saying that during the YD Brewster series because, I mean, these are 2 teams, like I said, who have good starting pitching. If you get that early edge, I mean, I just saw it yesterday when Tristan English, Chatham's pitcher, who won't be pitching this series because he went 108 pitches yesterday, but he got the lead early, and he told me after the game, once he got that 1-run lead in the first inning, it's such a relief to pitch with that. And if you have a lineup like both of these teams do, I think both pitching staffs are going to be susceptible to that, to giving up that early run, but getting that lead early is going to be important. And also getting that first game. I mean, it sounds obvious, like win the first game of the series, but no series has been won yet that the game 1 winner didn't win.
Mm-hmm. That's for sure. All right, Colin, I'm going to put you on the spot here. You're a neutral guy working for the Cape Cod paper, so you know you're not working for Chatham, you're not working for Wareham. Who's going to win this series and why?
It's a tough one. I'm almost still processing it in my mind right now. And I said game 1's going to be important, but it's just really hard for me to not pick a 3-game series. I mean, I sort of think that it goes each home team wins. I think Wareham wins 1. I think Ryan Garcia is a really good pitcher, and I think that they're going to be able to stifle the Chatham bats. I think Alec Manoa is a really good pitcher in the second game, and I think he's going to do damage against Wareham, and Chatham's going to get him back. And I do think Wareham in the end is going to win. And I never would have imagined saying that just based on the guys that they've lost. And it's really impressive. Don Sneddon in his second year just continuing to crank out these wins late in the season.
And there you have it. There's today's edition of Get on the Beat. Guys, back to you.
Thank you, Ian, on this very special edition of Get on the Beat. First pitch coming up in a couple hours here, 6:30, Game 1 of the 2018 Championship Series in the CCBL. All-important Game 1 like we've talked about ad nauseum. Guys, what are your keys?
My key to the game, Gatemen, bullpen, Easton Lucas, and whoever else you throw out after that. Because really, when you look at this pitching matchup between Austin Bergner and Ryan Garcia, I think it's a push in terms of who's got the advantage. I think these are probably the 2 best starting pitchers left in the league, obviously. But even before going into these playoffs, I think those were probably the 2 guys that you look to. Like, those guys are the aces. Those guys are really 2 guys we could easily see in the MLB in a couple of years. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that pitching matchup. But then you look at the Chatham bullpen, that's probably their weakness. They don't have the best bullpen left. They have a great offense and a great trio of starting pitchers that they will send out in this series. However, their bullpen is a little bit suspect. So if the Gatemen bullpen can outduel the Chatham bullpen and try to quell this Chatham offense, I think you're putting yourselves in a really good situation for the Gatemen offense, which has been so good in the playoffs, to really go ahead, go out, get you a big lead, and get you out in front early and set yourself off on the right foot. I think the bullpen today, whoever it may be, if it's Easton Lucas, it probably is going to be Easton Lucas. We're actually confirmed that we will see Easton Lucas after Ryan Garcia. But if Easton Lucas can't get through those 3 or 4 innings after Garcia, whoever comes after him is going to have to be really good as well, because you might hold this Chatham offense down for a little while, but you're not going to hold them down forever. They are just too good.
And everyone that pitches in this game will not probably see action the rest of the summer, so they're going to leave it all on the table. It's going to be really interesting to see what we get out of Lucas. Like you said, we're looking for 3 or 4 innings from him, 4 or 5 from Garcia. I think that's your recipe for success for sure. Cam, what about you?
I'm looking at the offensive side for the Gatemen, and it's been good over the last 2 weeks, this Gatemen offense, but let's be real, it's not as good as Chatham's. Chatham's is the best in the league I've seen in years. So the Gatemen are going to need to put together some patient at-bats tonight and really work the starter out there on the mound. The kid can throw 96, 97 miles an hour, but he's still 21 years old. He's still developing all his pitches. So you know what? Make him locate the 97. Don't give him any freebies, and try and put together some long at-bats, work that pitch count up. You said it. This bullpen's really suspect over there for Chatham. That is their big weakness, and the Gatemen have gotten to it 4 times already this year. That's been the bulk of their damage, has been coming against the Chatham bullpen. So if they can work some walks, get some guys on base, even if you're leaving them on early, obviously that's not what you want to see, but you know you can put together good at-bats against this kid, and you work up that pitch count. Chatham does not want to go to this bullpen. We saw it in their game yesterday against Brewster. Tristan English, a guy who's only a part-time starter, had the start of his life, and he went into the 9th inning with over 100 pitches working on a shutout. So it's not something you see. I know it's the end of the season, but you still don't see that very much, and they really didn't want to leave it to chance in the bullpen with a 3-run game against Brewster yesterday. They obviously still hung on for the win, but they're not too confident in that, and we as broadcasters know that has not been the best bullpen in the Cape League this year. So the Gatemen, who led the league in walks drawn this year, need to keep that up today. Maybe a couple more hit batsmen. Obviously, it's going to hurt today at 97, but we've seen a lot more of that for whatever reason in the postseason for the Gatemen. So if they can work the count, work up that pitch count, I think they'll be okay.
So limiting the damage, developing a little bit of an early lead, and punishing a suspect Chatham bullpen. That's the key to success today for the Gatemen, according to these two anyway. We'll see what comes to fruition in just a couple of hours. For maybe the last time at home at Spillane on the Gatemen pregame show, that's JD Raucci, that's Cam Stuart, I'm Henrique DaMour. We'll see you in a couple hours for first pitch.